Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekend edition of Hebrew Word Study. Glad to be back doing this again. Hope you're staying warm on this very chilly day and that you enjoy this study. Hope I can share something of the excitement that I feel as I've unpacked this verse here. We are in Matthew chapter 5, and it's verse 5, and a very short one. Here you see in front of you is the King James Version. It says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Again, some ambiguities about, what does it mean to inherit? What is the earth? What does it mean to be meek? And so let's join together as we dive into the Hebrew as taken from the Harley's Matthew. And you can see on your screen, put it in the interlinear format. Starts out again with the word ashrei that we have talked about before. So it'd be ashrei anavim, um, translated here as normally weak. I prefer to translate it as afflicted. I'll show you later. Then it would be he, which is for or that or which or because. It seems to fit better to before. Him is the personal pronoun, meaning they or them, and it's in a masculine perfect third person. And then Yershu, which has been translated as inherit. I'm going to go through a meaning of using the word occupy. And then finally, Aretz, which translated as land or earth, but it also is used to signify the land of Israel. And so there's a lot of meaning packed into this, and I have a lot of comments here that I'll share with you, and hope it's a blessing to you. So what we see again is this verse comes pretty much word for word from Psalm 37, verse 11. And so we look at this, we see that the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Interesting here, this is tied into Rav Shalom, abundance of peace. And so there's just a lot to unpack here as to how do they inherit the earth and how is an abundance of peace achieved and by what kind of action. Uses the word meek here. So let's go back and take a look at some of this here. The word that's typically translated as meek is 6035 and translated as meek in 3711. Um, this has some deep meaning to it. In 37, verse 9, it says, "Those that wait on Yahweh," or the Tetragrammaton, signifying the personal name of God, "shall also inherit the earth." And so, in that context of Psalm 37, it's about the removal of the wicked people who afflict those that are not as strong. Jesus may have been applying a Jewish means of telling a story, but not giving you all the information. It's very much a Jewish way of communication where they would kind of like saying, "Sticks and stones will break my bones." And we all know what the rest of the story is, but the person trying to make the impression wouldn't necessarily say it because he knew that his readers would know what it would be. And by having them complete the rest of it, it makes them think and gets them more personally involved. So this could be something that Jesus was doing, applying this type of teaching tool. You're expected to know the story and apply the rest of the meaning. And thinking about what is going on here, an earth without wickedness would be a life of peace, as we saw from Psalm 37. This could be a futuristic messianic realm. But this word here can also be used as afflicted, and that's coming from Jusanius in his lexicon, and his meaning is to bear injuries rather than return them. The word is first used here in applying to Moses when it describes in Numbers 12:3 that he was the most humble person on the earth. Well, obviously Moses probably didn't write that because you couldn't write that about yourself and still retain your humility. But if it was taken in a term of affliction, then it would describe Moses, because it's interesting that Moses was very afflicted by the people in the time of the wilderness. The book of Exodus and Deuteronomy are filled with all of his run-ins and how the people responded and how he had to take care of them. So his whole 40 years was a time of affliction. Also, during this time, because of his response to their affliction, he was denied entry into the promised land. So there's a neat undertone here of being afflicted and the promise that they'll occupy the promised land. But Moses, on the contrast, did not get to occupy the promised land because of how the affliction affected him and how he responded. So he was denied entry into the promised land. We also see Jesus was afflicted when he lived in Israel, which is referenced here as the promised land, but his conquest over death provides entry into the eternal promised land. So again, such a neat parallel because Jesus and Moses are prophetic figures of each other. Jesus is the one that was to come. As Moses said, a greater than he would come, or one like him would come. And so it's very interesting to see that parallelism here. In the Samson Raphael Hirsch Entomological Dictionary, a cognate meaning of this word is to move from internal to external. To be afflicted can be also an internal affliction of a persecution, and it causes an external reaction. Um, some more information on being humble comes from a work or a study of thought called the Musar, and one of the authors who is very much involved with this is an Alan Morinus, and he writes here something I thought was very beautiful. He says, being humble doesn't mean being a nobody. It just means being no more of a somebody than you ought to be. He also has a parallel definition as limiting oneself to an appropriate amount of space while leaving room for others. And then Rav Kook, who's a another Jewish sage, says humility is associated with spiritual perfection. But when the humility causes or affects depression, that means it's defective humility. Because when humility is genuine, it inspires joy, courage, and inner dignity. Another thing that's beautiful is this word of humility or meekness is used 11 times in the Psalm, more than any other place in the Bible. It's in Psalms, and thinking about David, who wrote the Psalms, and his relationship with God, his ups and downs of joys and triumphs and afflictions. I just see there's a lot of uh, real connection there. So those that are afflicted would occupy the land of Israel. The land here obviously means Israel. It doesn't mean any other country. It means the country of Israel. And so this word of occupy your shoe is one we're going to look into next. It's an imperfect, meaning kind of a future tense that would be occupied. It's spelled differently here than anywhere else in the Hebrew Bible. It would have a double yod there. So again, this portion is tied to Isaiah 61. Isaiah 61, as we mentioned last time, is the place where Jesus read when this scroll was brought to him in the synagogue and when he started his earthly ministry. So I just find how interesting that this Sermon on the Mount ties into the portion that he read when he started his earthly ministry. So this word can also mean to dispossess, similar to Moses expelling the inhabitants of the land. And then finally here, the land of Israel. It's again a double metaphor of both spiritual and physical. The prophetic of the Jews going through a lot of affliction, going through their persecution, the Holocaust, all being driven and returning, possessing, inheriting, all of those words apply here of them going back to Israel. And then it can also apply of the next kingdom on earth in the millennial period of when those that survive um, the uh, the plagues and the wrath that's poured out and the millennial time is set up on this earth obviously have come through great affliction. And then, of course, in a heavenly realm, those who are looking for heavenly reward, New Jerusalem is talked about in the book of Revelation. Again, very similar to the land of Israel. There's another meaning of this word land in Samson Raphael Hirsch, the Aleph, Resh, and Sade letters means to solidify the basic needs or have all the essentials, both physical and I would say spiritual, for existence. So again, just showing you the beauty of the Hebrew language, the meanings that are there, the richness of the derivatives of the words that can help us try to get an understanding of what maybe all those wonderful people who got to hear the sermon on the hillside what they were thinking when they heard these beautiful words of Jesus and what Jesus was meaning when he was speaking to them. And so I hope you enjoyed this little study. I have been thrilled by it. I hope I can share some of that with you through these words and unpacking them. And I pray God's blessing upon you, and we will see you again next time. Bye bye.